All right, so Citizen Science Project, January 20th, 2020. Welcome, everyone. We've got Kareem, Bert, and Sandra, and myself, Deepak, here. So we're having an interesting discussion before we hit the record button, but anything anybody want to jump in with? Any questions or anything anybody wants to start off with?
Nothing crazy on mine. I've been pretty slow in a sense, focused on other things, so.
Let me ask you this question, Bert. I know that, and Sandra as well. I know Kareem's answer, but have you tried any peptides or anything like that, Bert?
No. Another thing on the list.
Do you know anybody? You don't have to name names. Do anybody in your circle has tried that?
I have a friend of mine in the U.S. who's done it, but I haven't really, I guess, followed up with him or gone deep with, as to what the scoop is and that sort of thing. But yeah, no, nothing like. Definitely haven't delved deep into it. So I've listened to a few podcasts and like done a touch of reading, but I just haven't it's just another thing that I just haven't got time for right now, so yeah. Sure.
Yeah, no, it's something that I'm interested in looking to pull the trigger here and try a couple of them out to start with. So how about you, Sandra? Any thoughts on peptides?
No, I can't say I know a lot about them. I certainly have my list of things and trackers and things. And no, I'm not even looking at peptides right now. Fitbit brought out or actually 2 days ago, announced that they've brought out their tracker that monitors blood pressure at night. And I think that's a really big deal. So I was looking at buying the Oura Ring, but I might change my mind. I'm waiting to see what the Fitbit actually does.
So that's a new model that's coming out or just came out?
Yeah.
What's the name of that?
Was it Versa 2? I just saw it yesterday. I'm not sure.
Okay.
So they have the technology to monitor blood pressure. Apple actually has the technology too. They just haven't integrated it as yet. So it's just something I'm just interested in because there's such a thing as nighttime hypertension, and so anyone who's having sleep problems, it's possible their oxygen levels are dropping and their blood pressure is rising. And unless you have a nighttime tracker, you would have no idea that's going on.
Interesting. Yeah, I have to say, I think I've talked about this before, but I went away from Fitbit because I had a bad experience with my last one. So I switched to the Garmin about, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 9 months ago, something like that.
What do you think of that? Because I looked at the reviews and they weren't terribly good.
Well, I didn't go with the high end. I do have the Oura Ring, so I'm using that for a lot of the data. I basically just wanted a watch with steps and a few other things, and I still find the Oura Ring more accurate than as far as the sleep and that sort of thing than either the Fitbit was or the Garmin. So that's just
interesting.
My 2 cents at this point.
Comparing them, so.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about I'm looking at the Withings. They've got like a hybrid watch. So you can get, I think it's like 3 weeks battery or 4 weeks battery on per charge. But it's got a really good, like you can detect when you're sleeping if you've got a stop breathing event kind of thing.
What device is that?
What's that? Withings?
What device is that?
Withings, they just came up with a new model. Let me see, it's Withings.
So Kareem, while you're looking at that, you said it was a hybrid of what? Watch and this?
It looks like a watch. It looks like a regular watch, but it's got, you still get notification. It's got really good sensors. It just doesn't use a lot of power displaying things. Let's see here. So it is here. I'll share with you guys real quick.
I've never heard of that one.
Yeah, it just came out in CES. They just Withings been around for a while. They've got a really good blood pressure monitor thing. It's not super portable, but I think it's got on-demand ECG, AFib episode. It looks like I think this is the one. Yeah. So it looks like a regular watch, but it's got a little circle here. You can get notifications around that. So and the display is a little bit different, but it's an ECG. it's pretty good. It's got the AFib detection as well. So if it's got irregular heartbeats and stuff like that. But
throughout the day.
yeah, so it looks like a regular watch. That's kind of what I like about it, and it lasts a long time, right? I haven't traded around with the sleep tracking on it yet. I played around with these models a while ago, but they got much better. But Withings makes some pretty good products.
Does it have anywhere the price point on this thing? Oh wow,
Yeah,
sorry, at the top there, 130 US. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not bad.
No, it's pretty good. They got some really good ones.
This could potentially be really good for maybe older people who maybe have some heart issues already, just to monitor if it could be an early detection sign potentially, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it seems pretty good. And it lasts, the battery lasts for a while too. My mom, she's got an Apple Watch, but she's 80 years old, right? And every day she's got to charge it, right? And, so and it's got the fall detection and all that stuff. So we got it because of that. But yeah, it's she's got something she could wear all the time. Then, she doesn't have to worry about charging it and all that. And that's pretty good,
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look into this more. This looks very interesting.
Yeah, it's one of those, and it looks like a watch. It's what I like. That I currently don't wear a watch, so I wear like heart rate variability, like so I could do sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system stuff without actually having to put a strap on my chest. And these are pretty good Zoom devices, but they stopped making them, so they're kind of a collector's item right now. You can do a full HRV assessment with these. Yeah.
You didn't actually go to CES, did you?
No, I wish.
Yeah.
Be like a kid in a candy store.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in a couple of years, Kareem.
Yeah. Maybe this year, next year coming up.
What event is that?
Consumer Electronics Show.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with the biohacking ones, but there's one in Europe and one, of course, coming up, but they're quite expensive to go to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I went to, I guess it was not this past October, the October before, the one in Toronto. It was really good. But then they basically sold out to, like the Biohackers handbook guys, the European guys. And I think they're just consolidating, and they basically just like squashed like a North America show. So it's just like they just go to Finland or wherever they're having it in Europe one day. But
that's the one to go. I think that might be the one you were talking about, Sandra.
Yeah. So there's a big one in Europe, and then of course Dave Asprey does his that's coming up in March, which will be interesting, but expensive.
Yeah, that's about what, 800 a pop, Dave Asprey's?
I think it was 1,700.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a couple of people that have gone before. They really liked it, but it sounds amazing. But yeah, you got to justify the not only the cost of the ticket, but then your travel and all that as well.
That's right. Yeah.
Wow, it's like going to a Mecca or something, right? The pilgrimage every year. Yeah,
for sure. Anything else interesting come up since it's been a while since the groups got together?
I'll go back to the peptides for a second. Where were you thinking about getting them from?
Well, I think that Kareem, chime in any time, but I think the gold standard is TaylorMade in the US, but I think Kareem did some research there and a little bit of trouble getting it here in Canada. So there's an outfit in, I think, Montreal area where you can potentially get them there, and then there's a bunch of other stuff, but they online, but they seem a little sketchy, and I wouldn't just the way the website looks and stuff like that just looks really sketchy. So I think TaylorMade's the gold standard, and this other one in Montreal looks pretty reputable.
CanLab is the one in Montreal, and the guy's been around. He's been around for a while. He seems pretty reputable. and the price is, you know, like maybe twice as much as normally what you would pay for peptides in the US.
Yeah, I think like anything, like you're right, to a degree, you know, you'll pay for quality, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I did on Facebook, there's some biohacker groups, forums. So I put it out there, and pretty much, yeah, Can Labs, TaylorMade, and one other that it's escaping me at the moment. We're kind of like the consensus, like, yeah, they're quality.
Yeah.
Just the three at the moment. So
and TaylorMade, like you gotta have a doctor's prescription and stuff like that, so they don't just sell to anyone as well. But they apparently they have some really good like sequencing stuff and all that, like, so good apparently really good quality. But I've written them a few times. They haven't replied yet. I think there might be a big demand. Just kind of see how the process works, but I haven't heard anything back from them yet. So I'm looking to experiment. I just ordered some C-Max. So it's an intranasal spray. And I'm going to try that out to see. So I've got some equipment that I can measure brain function and things like that. So I'm going to try to quantify the effects of that to see what it does, and maybe take a couple of EEGs and heart rate variability, and just kind of see what that looks like for the few days that I try it.
What do you hope it'll do?
I think what it actually helps with right now, from what I understand, is like brain inflammation and stuff like that. So when you have that reduced inflammation of the brain, if you have it, it just improves brain functions and clarity and all that stuff. So a lot of folks that have like mild cognitive impairment or subjective cognitive impairment is related to inflammation, right? Yeah. So I just kind of want to try it out before I kind of suggest it to someone to try it. And maybe you know, play around with it to you know, take that along with some stuff that increase BDNF and some other things, and kind of see what if I can get some kind of holistic effect going on. Yeah.
And I'll ask you, since we're talking about this and whatnot, is what's one thing that you've done that has made the biggest, I'll say, improvement in cognitive performance, or I'll say brain fog, energy, that sort of thing? Like if there was something.
For myself?
Yeah.
I think like hitting, I mean, on a regular basis, hitting the sauna, I think is really good. Like just, I get it to 150, 160 Fahrenheit. So I do it for an hour, and that works really well.
Yeah.
But as far as nootropic stuff, I think the one thing that I feel like I get like always, it's just gangbusters effect, where I'm like, you know, I don't feel good. I stayed up later, whatever. Combination between methylation blue and yerba mate. That's gangbusters for me. I'm just like, just kind of wakes everything up, and I'll go for like a few hours, and I'll mix it with some caprylic acid as well, the yerba mate. But we make it in an espresso maker, and I kind of grind up the herbs so that's super fine, almost like espresso type thing. And that's rocket fuel. I just dragon or whatever. My brain doesn't fight. It's like go, you know, like it just works.
I'll second that. I'll chime in. So Kareem runs Brain Mechanics. So this is a while back. I was helping him out. I came over to his house one Saturday morning to work on some presentation, and I had some bulletproof coffee earlier before I went over there. So I was already, you know, feeling pretty good. Fasted, and then he gave me some yerba mate and methylation blue. First time I ever tried it, my brain was firing. I kept interrupting Kareem because I had thoughts that were just coming so fast to me. I couldn't even, like, it was crazy. It was so I second that. It was insane.
Where do you get the methyl blue from?
I make it.
Okay.
I've got enough methyl blue for like a couple of lifetimes.
I'm gonna have to like.
we could totally hook up sometime. We can figure out how to make it, and give you some powder. You can keep making it like
that's what I'll do.
And pass on to your kids. Like,
okay, we'll have to do that then, because I'd love to try.
Yeah. Well, there's a whole process, but I got the equipment. I'm also getting equipment to start making C60 now. Carbon 60. Sandra, are you familiar with Carbon 60?
I'm not. Just listening to what you're saying about methane blue, because I did that genetic test, that is something I personally shouldn't take. I have a genetic SNP. So some people have a problem with neurotransmitters breaking down too quickly. I have the other reverse problem. Mine do not break down. And so there's certain, like if I was ever taking a medication for depression, there's most of these medications I should never be on. It would make me aggressive. And methylene blue is also listed as something I should never take, or resveratrol, or actually even curcumin, or things that are. So it's just interesting. I've tried a lot of things. There's a supplement that's not actually here in Canada. It's called Teacrine. And it just wired me up so much because I brought some in. It was interesting. If I was going to do a marathon, it might have been a good thing, but for day-to-day, it was just like, whoa, over the top. But yeah, it's just interesting. Those kind of things most people can probably take, but not me. Just, yeah.
Sandra, two questions. One, off the top of your head, what SNP was it? If you don't remember, that's fine. And two, what genetic test did you do?
I can't remember if it was the MAO genetic SNP or comp SNP. I'd have to look it up. I have that information.
Okay, and what test was it? What genetic test?
So I did the DNA labs out of Toronto.
Okay. Yeah.
But I was at a conference and I also talked to another company that does genetic testing, and they specifically were focusing on medications for people with depression. And they had a great chart. So certain people should definitely never touch antidepressants, but things like fish oil will actually help them. So it was really quite interesting. And there's actually a test coming to Canada fairly soon. It's called Brain Span. I can send you the link, which is kind of interesting because it talks about, it will assess the amount of omegas you have in your blood and the kinds of things that will actually support brain function. And there's sort of a speed test you do online. It's not expensive. I think it's $200 US. So I'm kind of curious as to that one, but it breaks down processing speed and memory, how to improve memory and things. And that's another test where there's a little supplement you hardly ever hear talked about called tyrosine, and it helps with processing speed. Works great for me, but again, not everything works for everybody. But yeah, that one works for me. So yeah, I have a few things like I've mentioned. Krill oil works great for me. The tyrosine works great for me. Those are two of my big brain supplements that I actually do.
Cool. Is anyone familiar with, I'm blanking on the name, they're Calgary-based, AOR.
Yes.
I'm afraid that stands for. You're familiar with them? Have you done their test or know much about them? I know they're kind of a supplement company with trying to do this like test, I think, to sell supplements, but.
Yeah, so AOR is partnered with DNA Labs. That's who's doing the test.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I've looked at AOR's results. The problem with what they're doing is they're just trying to sell combination formulas, and I'm not a big fan of those because some people might need certain supplements in that formula, but other people wouldn't need them. And there is such a thing as taking too much of something. Like I'm a bigger believer in taking singles than anything else. When you start getting into these combinations, you really don't know what they're doing in combination, and there's no studies to prove it. So,
as far as their so I guess it's just DNA Labs. That's basically it's just
So AOR is using DNA Labs, and they just did a custom program for them.
Yeah, because they had a sale going on about like a few weeks ago or a month ago or something like that, and it kind of got on the radar of my mother-in-law, so she was asking me about it, and I said, well, it's they're a supplement company, so what are they trying to do here?
Was there sale on the DNA lab test?
Yes, it was on the DNA lab test. Yeah, they don't say it's DNA Labs, they just say it's their test or whatever. Right. But yeah, the sale was on the test, so that's what my mother-in-law was potentially interested in. So.
Oh, interesting. I think it's really good information, but people would have to do a lot of research to understand what it all meant. Yeah, so it's like I've been studying it for 3 years of my own genetics, so I have a good indicator of what works for me. But for the average person, I mean, the thing with genetic testing, the saying is always, it's your blueprint. So it's only one piece of information. It's a blueprint of your body. It doesn't tell you all the other factors that are going to be influenced. So yeah, I do it because it's of an interest to me, but would it be the first thing people should do? Probably not.
Yeah, she was she wanted to have someone to like do it with her. So I'm like, and she's like, I'll pay for you for your test. I'm like, well, then I'll do it if you want, you know,
Yeah.
type of thing. But so I went through and I was like it's okay. Like I think, you know, it seems, you know, it's relatively easy. Like their sample reports seemed
Right.
okay, like for the lay person who's not going to do the research to read. So I kind of gave it a mixed review. So she's like, well, we'll revisit this. They winter down south, so she's like, when we come back in the spring, we'll revisit it. So I was like, okay.
I'll send you the name of a doctor in Toronto, and he actually is one of the best interpreters of genetic testing. I think he costs about $500, which is actually quite kind of cheap for the amount of information you could get. But if anyone's going to do the test and don't want to spend the time on trying to figure it all out, then he would be someone worth talking to.
What's his name?
It's Mohammed something or other. I can't remember his last name.
He's with DNA Labs, right?
No, he's not.
Oh, okay.
I just, yeah, he was with another genetic company at one point, and I just know of all of the people out there, he seems to know the most.
Okay. Cool.
And so Sandra and even the other guys here is, if you guys were to do it over again, or recommend like you know Deepak's your mother-in-law to do it over again, who would you get them to do the DNA test through? Like what would be your, like, say, more comprehensive or?
No, I think DNA Labs has the best one I've seen so far.
Yeah.
I originally did 23andMe about 3 or 4 years ago, and it's nice to know if you want to know about your ancestry. It doesn't really give you much information. And then I did a Genopalette, which was just a food one out of the US, but they no longer will do it in Canada. So DNA Labs is the best. And even if your mother-in-law has done the test, that is the test he looks at. He looks at DNA Labs. He doesn't work for them, but that's the testing he actually uses. So I do recommend it, and the information on there is good. It just, you won't know why.
Yeah.
They'll tell you what to, you know, sort of recommendations, but it won't tell you the whys.
Yeah, I looked at DNA Labs probably again about 18 months ago after I came back from the Toronto Biohacking Conference, and they were there. And they seem to be the best at that time, but then I kind of stopped researching others, so I don't know where they stand. But that's good. That's good to know that, you know,
yeah, they're good. What was I going to say on that? It's good information, because the other thing is, even if you do your own reading on different genetic SNPs, they're all connected, so you have to kind of know how they connect. So it's not necessarily obvious. Just because you're low in folate doesn't necessarily mean you should be taking folate. So there's more to it than what the report can tell you.
Yeah, you got to know upstream and downstream.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
for sure. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I just wanted to, I want to go back just very briefly, and we go on to another topic, just to fully answer your question, Bert. I think you asked where, and I was just, for the peptides, where I was going to order them. But I think to start with, probably BPC 157 is what I'll probably try.
Okay. Yeah. I'm curious, so you'll have to bring it up next time, or if you do try it. So definitely curious.
Yeah, hopefully ordering it within the next, you know, couple weeks or a month or something like that. And then,
So what are the peptides to do?
Oh, Kareem, will you want to jump in on that one?
What's that?
I'm gonna defer to Kareem to answer on peptides in general, and then maybe BPC 157.
Yeah, they're the future of medicine. Like they're just, you know, this amino acid chains, right? But they're happening, a lot of them naturally in the body. Right. And you're just, for example, BPC 157 happens in the digestive tract, and it helps heal the gut and cut down inflammation. But you know, pharmaceutical companies haven't really gotten into it because some of these things happen naturally, so they can't patent these things. Like you can't really patent BPC 157, right? But BPC 157, like a lot of the peptides, you can inject them subcutaneously, like in the fat area, like, you know, like you would do like a insulin injection, you know, like 2-3 inches from the belly button. And they have a systemic effect. So like, for example, BPC 157 helps you heal really fast. That's what it does in the body. So it'll circulate and it'll help you heal. Like if you got tendonitis or, you know, you know, issues with your digestive tract and things like that, it'll just heal you. Now that one you can inject, but that one you can also take orally. But they're very sensitive to light and things, so you have to be really careful when you mix them. And there are others, you know, some of them you can take topically. So there's one called ihexa that I'm trying to find that you can put in here in the artery, and it goes directly to the brain and increases BDNF by like 600%. So it's crazy. And it also helps with like inflammation and things like that. So they all have different purposes and different things. You know, there's some that are like, you know, they might induce like growth hormone effects. There might be, I mean, they're all over the place. Some even help you sleep. There's some that are tuned to help you have more delta waves. So we've been doing research on those for inducing delta waves. But funny enough, I'm getting really great effects from reishi mushrooms. So why would I have to spend a whole bunch of money on kind of that stuff? But you know, they have all kinds of different effects. Like we could share with you some links of research on that, but they really are like the future of medicine for, and even biohacking in general, right? If you're not, you know, if you don't not too concerned about needles and things like that, then, you know, if you have a serious issue like, you know, digestive issues and things, you got to heal fast. This stuff will help you heal like Wolverine. Like it really works like that.
Where do you get them?
It's kind of right now the regulation stuff. A lot of them is like places where they make compounds. So Deepak mentioned on one of them in the U.S. In Canada, there's a place called Can Labs that makes them. They seem fairly reputable. Can Lab.
Okay.
We can share a link to that. And they're, you know, they've got some good sources of those, and just depends. You got to do. They all have different purposes, right? So depending on your use case, you'll have some that are there, but a lot of them require the needle. So you have to like take the powder and mix it up with like liquid that's specifically for you know, subcutaneous injections, and then you have to inject yourself, right? And you can expose them to heat and things like that. So they're fairly sensitive, but they span the whole gamut. There's some that are like truly anti-aging type effects, like pretty profound effects. Those are like $500-600 or more for a certain amount. Yeah, they have really places like Russia. They've done quite a lot of research on these and they use them. And in fact, the one that I ordered, CMAX, is an intranasal spray, and that's coming out of Russia. So yeah, it's yeah, pretty interesting stuff.
Sandra, do you want a definition of peptides?
Well, I do know what peptides are, and I heard them mentioned about 20 years ago, but I've never heard much about them in a long time. So I mean, yeah. So what is the definition of?
Well, I'm just going to read this from
Sure.
Dave Asprey's Superhuman book. Okay, so compounds consisting of two or more amino acids linked in a chain. It's easiest to think of amino acids as letters. When grouped together in the right formation, they make words. These words are peptides. And like words, your body uses them to communicate with itself. When you combine several peptides, you have a polypeptide, which is a part of a protein and functions like a sentence. And a whole protein, like collagen, is essentially an entire paragraph. So I'm just trying to get a sense of like how small you're going back from like a protein like collagen, which a lot of people are familiar with. So that's the only reason I wanted to read that. Just
Okay,
it's just kind of the size of it. So yeah.
From protein, you're turning into amino acids, and amino acids are turning into peptides. So that's what the body's extracting. So.
Right. Well, or these compounding pharmacies are like extracting, then just like giving you just that little part of it that they found to work on something very specific. Whereas if you added a bunch of other stuff, then you just have collagen, or you just have a protein. It's going to just, you know.
I know they've used peptides in skin products for a long time. Whether they're strong enough or protected, I don't know that they actually work. But I know peptides, there is something there for sure. I don't recall that in his book. I remember him talking about stem cells, but
yeah, it's in the same section of that book. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else
Regarding peptides?
or anything in general? So I already asked my couple questions that I had banked. So Any update that you want to share with on brain mechanics, Kareem?
No, I think we're chugging along pretty good. We're kind of doing a bit more of we're doing a bit more of a neurofeedback now, getting that going, and we're building some sensors and things that are going to help us kind of apply neurofeedback at scale. So playing around with that. Actually got the family and kids now doing all that. They're my little test subjects. We're doing now a mood enhancement protocol that I'm testing out, so that seems to be working pretty good. No, it's been great. Well, I guess the big thing is playing around. We're playing around quite a lot with SRT, so subconscious release therapy. So we've been doing a bit of emotional freedom technique stuff, and we're combining with other things, bilateral stimulation and other stuff. So I'm going to be taking on some experiments and quantifying some of the effects of SRT techniques. So that's one thing that we've got going on, and we're kind of expanding, combining that into, it's probably not going to be SRT by the time we're done with it, but kind of enhancing it a bit more. And then we're now looking to do some vestibular nerve stimulation trials for company. They send us the hardware, so we're going to test it out. Anybody have an Oura ring besides Deepak? No. Okay, so yeah, that's part of it. So I got another device. If anybody has an Oura ring, you can join us. But it stimulates the vestibular nerve, and then it goes into the brain, and then it has some improvements in sleep. The studies that they did was using the Pittsburgh like sleep assessment type, qualitative type assessments. So we're looking to actually get like brain functional assessments and actually EEG measurements to see what the impact is, and then measure some heart rate variability with Oura ring. So, but they send us 4, and I think Deepak, you're on board, right?
Oh, you bet. I'm on board.
Okay. So we'll get Deepak and myself and Liliana, and if I find somebody else to help us, then they have an Oura ring, then they can join us and see what the effects are for that kind of study. So it'll be a month study that we do there. Yeah. So a few things on the study side. I mean, we've got some other. We're talking to Calico, which is Google's anti-aging group. So we just did a proposal for monitoring brain functions. So they had 100 participants, and they were going to do an fMRI before and after. So that would be in the US is $3,500 per fMRI. So that's like $700,000, and we've got an approach where we could capture like a lot more data for probably like 50 times less what it would cost them, along with sleep and everything else like that. So so we're gonna we just did a proposal to see if that gets approved. We're partnering up with some clinicians there. This big brain institute out of Colombia, they're actually a collective of China, Japan, and France and other places, and they're doing a cell therapy for orphan neurological disorders. So that's that's what they wanted to do, the fMRI before and after. But with our capabilities, we pretty much instead of $700,000, actually it would be millions of dollars, but we could do it for about $200,000 instead of millions. And instead of capturing just 2 data sets, we're now going to capture 48 data sets per participant just on the brain functions, and then a sleep study every night for 6 months, which would be cost prohibitive for them to even do. So it's pretty cool, because before they were doing like almost like, if you think about the granularity of the data that they were going to capture, is almost like a black and white TV. And we've said, hey, why don't we give everybody satellite TV? It could be 8K and it'll record day and night kind of thing. So that's pretty exciting, but that's going to be a few months until we know, these big companies move slow. But if that gets approved, that'll be pretty cool, because I think that would put us in the map, at least on the quantification, on the crowdsourced quantification kind of stuff. So
yeah, that'd be huge for you guys.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a few things that we're playing around with, but I'm really excited about SRT. Like, I don't know if you guys know much about it, but it's a technique. I'm a Vipassana meditator, right? So I'm used to going to a deep level of the mind to purify the mind, right? So sensation levels are tied to the subconscious level of the mind. And what's really interesting about SRT is that you could literally, say for example, we all have programming. Like say for example, when you were a kid and you thought you were invulnerable, and all of a sudden it's like you weren't. Maybe you weren't smart enough to to get good grades. So all of a sudden, like your dad said, no, I'm not going to give you that Nintendo PlayStation because you didn't make the grades, right? So then in your mind, you might create a program called I'm not good enough, right? And it's just a thought, right? And that thought then later on in your life, that not good enough might come up a few times, right? And it's tied to an emotion, right? And that emotion is tied to a sensation. And what's really cool about SRT is that you actually can select a program that it's obvious in your life, or you can discover like I'm not good enough, and then you look at what the emotion that's tied to that not good enough, and you can literally selectively rewrite that whole program or not good enough with this technique. And I've been meditating for I think 16 years or 17 years now, taking many different courses, and I literally felt this similar effects, not as profound but close, like Vipassana meditations, the purification of the mind technique. And but you gotta go on 10-day course, and you gotta dive really deeply to get ingrained. And this technique is, you can literally coach somebody to process 3 or 4 different programs in a matter of 45 minutes. So it's pretty profound. And what we're doing is we're taking this base thing and we're adding other things that actually can help facilitate the process and be able to make it more efficient and things. So so it's pretty cool. So, but that has not been quantified yet. Still, a lot of people that practice is kind of like woo-woo. But what I'm planning on doing is I'm planning on collaborating with this guy Patrick, who's you kind of showed me the technique, to help him quantify the effects of it, right? So brain functions, heart rate variability, other kind of quantifications that we could do before and after, to really try to paint the picture that it does have a deep psychophysiological effect, so that we can bridge the gap between woo-woo and actual, science. And that's really the one that I'm really excited about, because if it's working like I feel it works, it could be really profound to quantify it, and then even build out a tool. We're thinking about automating it so that we could actually build a tool so you don't even potentially need a therapist, right? Where I don't know if you guys ever played the adventure books, where you have like, you have this like one page, and if you do this decision, it takes you to page 54. If you make this other decision, we're building kind of like an automated system where based on your answer, it'll take you to show you the areas that you need to work on. And then a lot of the quantification will help, validate it, and then you're then off to this track of the things that you should be worked in on. So it's pretty exciting. I would say that's even more exciting than any of the Google stuff, I think, because the profound effects of that is like, I just did it for 35 minutes a day on the bus ride, and I feel like a shiny penny after that. Resilient, emotionally speaking, I feel I got rid of a bunch of baggage.
Crazy. What would you say is your best resource for learning that, or to find out more about it?
I think I can look for some resources and share them with you. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to sort through a bunch of kind of stuff that's out there. Mm-hmm. That is honestly, when I was looking at it, I'm going if I would have just looked at that stuff, I would have been like, this is marketing woo-woo. I don't want to touch this, because it felt almost like a multi-level chain stuff. But after practice it myself, I'm going, wow, this stuff really works, Some of the things are a little bit require a bit more skill. I don't know if you ever heard of muscle testing. Mm-hmm. So that requires a skill set. So a lot of the way they teach it is muscle testing. So I've kind of varied it a little bit, modified it so that instead of muscle testing, I do more like an EFT, where you feel the sensation and you can gauge the intensity of the sensation. Because I think it's really important if you're working at the subconscious level of the mind to actually tie it into sensation. And not everybody can actually muscle test. Myself, I'm still kind of there's all kinds of you do this thing or the finger or somebody, and it does work. I've seen it work. I can't actually get into somebody's field. I can feel the field and I can get into the field, but I just can't test it, right? So That's a part that I kind of.
So there's a device that's been registered as a class 2 medical device. It's out of Germany. It should be in North America in about a month, and it's called Healy, Healy. I'm not sure what I think about it yet. When I see it, I'll know. But it's based on Tesla's principle that everything is vibration and frequency. So what you're talking about is, to some degree, is helping somebody's, I sometimes don't know the words, they're improving their energy levels. So this device, it's supposed to work with your cell phone, and you kind of clip something on to yourself, and whatever's going on is supposed to help balance you. So I don't know yet if it's, as I said, it's coming out of Germany, and I would actually have to see it and try it, because I would know right away if it actually works or not. So it'll be interesting. It's another one on my list. I know someone who's going to buy one, so I'm going to check it out and see.
It's Haley.
It's Healy.
Oh.
Sandra, can you send the link and then I can put it in the.
Okay.
Yeah. What I was going to tag on to that. So Kareem mentioned this fellow Patrick. I also know this same fellow. So he gave me a very, very short session on Friday to deal with one issue baggage, if you will, that I was working on. And, today's Monday. So, it's called 3 days. And I have to say I feel something. I think there's something there for one of my, let's call it triggers. Haven't had it in 3 days. So, that could just be chance for sure. I definitely, like Kareem said, would like to, quantify it as well. But going through it, again, a very short session. It wasn't a full session. We kind of ran out of time. But I could see working with, as a coach, working with people who have emotional issues or triggers or what have you, that is holding them back from reaching their goals, health specifically, that being another tool to help them work through those blockages so that they can focus on their health. So I in that very 30-minute session, I was like, there's something here I need to learn.
What is it called?
SRT, subconscious release therapy.
Okay.
Or spiritual release therapy?
Subconscious release therapy.
Subconscious, okay.
Yeah, it is not it doesn't go as deep as Vipassana, and I don't know if you know about Vipassana, but it's a purification of the mind technique. So when you go to the subconscious, when you look at the sensation level, so you got thoughts and you got emotions, and emotions are abstract, and then but what happens is human beings, they feel a sensation, and it's triggered by any of the sensory windows, so your eyes, your ears, whatever, and your thoughts, right? And then any thought is accompanied by, any of these different things are interpreted and saying there's something going on in the senses. What is it? It's a word, for example, from your ear, and it's what kind of word a part of your brain says, oh, it's a pleasant, it's a good word, it's a praise, right? And another part of your brain generates a pleasant sensation, right? And human beings, we're constantly, we feel sensations and pleasant sensations. We can get attached to sensations when we have craving to the sensations or aversions. I don't like it, right? And a lot of times we just react blindly because those sensations might be tied to past memories. So those sensations actually lead to programming, mental programming, right? So you might have an event in your life where you were, beat up by a kid that was, dark skinned, for example, right? And when you see a dark skinned person, what happens is your body's saying, hey man, you got beat up, you had a bad experience, and your programming saying avoid it, aversion, right? And you might be a racist because of that, right? And so techniques that actually, Vipassana is a meditation technique, which by the way, you can learn for free. There's a center 3 hours away from Calgary, but Vipassana is a technique where you observe natural phenomena, sensations, and you learn to observe them with equanimity, so you're not reacting anymore with craving or aversion. Not only that, when you're observing the sensations, you're actually bringing up past sensations that happen in your things that happen. And when you don't react anymore, the sensations actually, that programming start losing strength. And if you have a lot of reactions, they might be like a 8-lane or 10-lane road, highway, super highway. And then when you observe them with equanimity and not reacting and just objectively observing them naturally as they are, you'll see there's a growth sensation and it arises and passes away and then it goes away, right? So you start learning, oh, these things are impermanent, right? And when you don't react, those lanes might turn into 10 from 10 lanes to 8 lanes to 6 lanes to 4 lanes. And as the reactions go away, you're not energetically feeding that reaction anymore, that neurological pathway, and therefore you're liberated from being a racist, for example, right? And so that goes in fairly deep, and you're doing a lot of deep analysis, and it gets into like, your mind and your matter, and then the mind and the matter kind of dissolve. You're meditating, and you see like change movements in your body, and you feel like you really are. I mean, you're subatomic particles that are constantly moving, and in theory, you all know that, but you actually experience that because you're learning to observe change, right? So SRT doesn't go that deep, but what it does, it makes it pretty practical to say, this is a programming, this is an emotion tied to that programming, and then you do some affirmations that actually help you energetically release that attachment, right? Because we're attached to all these different identities and things, right? So anything that can help you unattach, you start liberating yourself from these things, right? And it's pretty wonderful. I mean, it's really great because you don't have to take a 10-day course. You can do it with a client fairly quickly. People can do it on themselves, once you get pretty good at it. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a guide that you could say, these different things are categories. You could have a bunch of different programs from your marriage, for example, or jobs or childhood, right? So we're trying to create a catalog of all these different things that potentially can happen, what emotions could be tied to that, so that people can have a guide or routine they can go through and start applying. And then once they get good at that, they can keep adding things that they need to purify. But that's kind of, in a sense, what we're looking to do. But it's a technique of liberation. When you liberate yourself from this attachment, flow can happen. And what happens is your brain is like it's like a computer, that's running Excel processes, right? And these past memories and things just keep running, and they're taking up a lot of your RAM and CPU stuff. And when you cut down that, Excel process with this big macro, now your brain has bandwidth to do other stuff, right? You're now not living in the past or in the future with your default mode network. You're now living here more in the present, right? So you can perform better, live better, and be happier because you're here now. You're not thinking about, stressing about the future or depressed about something that happened in the past. You're just like, you can just literally rewrite it like a VHS tape. I'm dating myself here, but back in the day, you can just be able to record on top of it, right? So this SRT actually helps with that. It helps with that purification. Yeah.
I do think what's coming in the future, and I don't know if this Healy is it, there is a certain energy or frequency to certain emotions, and I think that's where most health problems come from. And it's actually breaking that energetic pattern, I think, is another piece to it. But anyways, we'll find out more in the future.
Well, with Vipassana, what I learned, my truth is that honestly, like, everything is waves, right? Mm-hmm. So call it frequencies, whatever it is, but you actually have to consciously observe those things and not give it importance, and they just dissolve and go away, right? And naturally. So the process of dissolution is something that it has to be conscious, right? Oh, yeah. And it has to be at the conscious level, but yeah, I think that there's going to be some big changes coming up, I think, and I'm excited because technology and things can help quantify, so we can bridge the gap between this woo-woo stuff and science.
Cool. Anybody got anything else before we wrap up? Nope. All right. Well, thanks everyone. It was fun. Always a good conversation. So hopefully we did Dr. Shubnam proud here. So I'll send the link out. And if you guys have any of the links and stuff we talked about, send them to me and I'll put it all in one email and push it out to everybody. All right, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Cool.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.